Okay, well, welcome everyone to this week's webinar. It's great to virtually see everybody and glad everyone's doing well. If you don't know, I'm Bruce Rosenblatt. I am the owner and the founder of Senior Housing Solutions, and I provide advice for people who are considering senior housing in this area. I also have a network of advisors throughout the country, so if people are thinking to look at places outside of this area, I can also be of assistance. So I've been doing this I've been in the business for over 30 years. I'm pretty much the foremost expert on the senior housing business in this area. And I formed my company 12 years ago, and that's all I do is help people with senior housing. So it's great to have you all here. I also try to be a resource for people. And about a month ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Tracy from Brightstar, and was really impressed with her and all her knowledge about home care. And I thought it'd be great to feature Tracy and Brightstar and what they do. I happened to have met their team just the other day, and I learned a lot about the different services that they provide. So even though I would love for everyone to consider senior housing, I know that there are times where people are thinking about, want to stay at home. And so Brightstar offers that ability, as well as they offer transitional care when people are, moving from possibly their home to assisted living. So Tracy, it's great to have you here today. And I want to just say, when I see Tracy Bradley, I think of Tom Bradley. And so I'm sure there's no relation, right? There's, no relation to Tom, right?
No, unfortunately, I wish. Me as well.
So Tracy, so I'm gonna let you carry it from here. So go for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today, Bruce. I'm looking forward to meeting all of the individuals who are on the call today. I also want to introduce you to our Director of Operations. This is Susan. She's going to sit in with me today and answer any questions that we may have. But I want it to be informal. I want individuals to feel comfortable to ask questions whenever they have them. If you want, you could just raise your hand. You don't have to worry about hitting any buttons. It's very informal. Just on your screen, give us a wave and we'll stop and answer questions. Just don't forget to unmute yourself when you have a question. So as Bruce said.
So Susan, I can't see the screen right now.
You can't?
Well, I see part of it. I don't see the whole thing.
Can you see it now?
You may want to shrink it a little bit.
Yeah.
And kind of page up. There we go.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. Okay, is that good?
Yes.
Yeah, you can at least see the verbiage. So as Bruce mentioned, we all have choices, and senior living and assisted living are obviously choices that we can make when needed. But if people want to stay in their home and be comfortable in their home, there are services available to you for in-home care. And there are numerous variations of in-home care. And that's what we're going to talk about today. When you make a decision to stay at home, whether it's a short-term need for a caregiver or a long-term need for a caregiver, there's things that you should at least know and understand before making a decision on who that caregiver is going to be. So choosing the right option for home care for you or your loved one is one of the most important decisions that you can make. And you need to be able to receive the highest value care and peace of mind. And with that being said, in order to choose a private caregiver, a home care agency, or a registry, let's talk about some of the things you need to know about each category before making your decision. In life, we all live on a budget, most of us. Typically, the population has a fixed income, And you do have to look at what the price points are for each of your options. So there's really three options we can talk about. There's an agency, there's a registry, and there's private caregivers. So the definition of an agency is a model where caregivers are full employees of the company. This involves more supervision and less potential liability for the client and or their family. In addition to the supervision and training, the company provides employees are also bonded and insured, which is incredibly important. And all of their payroll taxes are the responsibility of the company. Further, the agency is fully responsible for scheduling and replacing caregivers as necessary and for whatever reason. So where reliability and consistency are imperative for proper care, this is a very important element to an agency. So in an umbrella description, an agency handles all of the responsibilities of an employee. So if you were to hire somebody, we would come in and meet with you and do a full assessment with you so that we understand what the care plan will be. And a care plan cannot be put together without a nurse. People will say we're going to give you a plan of care or a care plan, but truly an assessment is done by a nurse where they're going to go from head to toe and talk about all of your needs. In an agency as well, as I mentioned, those caregivers are employees of our agency. So we manage them, we supervise them, we train them, and we're in communication with them. If you're looking at a registry, which let's talk about a registry is more of a matchmaking service provider. They will listen to what your needs are, and they're going to match you with who they feel is the best caregiver. When they place the caregiver in your home, by law, they cannot supervise that individual because they are not an employee of the registry. And the IRS prohibits that supervision. They also are not insured and bonded in your home. With this all being said, there are opportunities to hire a registry where they're less expensive, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what those responsibilities will mean to you. Any questions so far? Okay, great. So let's talk about the first block, hourly wages. Sometimes families will look to someone they know from their community or a referral from a friend of someone who they can hire directly. This is more of private caregiving. This may be a less expensive route on a per hour basis versus hiring an agency such as ourselves or others, but there can be several hidden costs that outweigh any of the savings. So let's say, for example, you work with an agency and they're going to charge you $25 an hour. And then you find a private caregiver through a friend and they're going to charge you $15 an hour. So you think net, I've saved $10 an hour. And you may, but with that comes some risks. Taxes and insurance, for example. In addition to the wages the family must pay for the federal payroll taxes and Social Security and state taxes, the IRS won't let you claim those expenses on your personal taxes. You are the employer, so you now have to pay that individual, and you have to pay their payroll taxes. If you decide to only pay the $15 and not pay the state taxes or the federal taxes or Social Security, and that individual at the end of their assignment decides to go to unemployment and say, I was working for Bruce, I no longer have a job, I would like to collect unemployment, they're going to look back to see if Bruce paid the taxes necessary. If not, Bruce will be fined and he would have to pay the taxes. It's something you don't want to do, is to get caught not paying the taxes. To protect your family, you may also want to look into liability and workman's comp insurance. Let's say you have Mary come in to care for you and Mary slips and falls in your home. That now is your liability. If you hire an agency, the agency handles those insurance claims. That's no cost to the client. And that's very important. If they're moving or lifting a loved one and they get hurt and they put in a workman's comp, that will be your liability as the employer. So that's the same for a registry or private caregiver. With an agency, that's all in our $25 fee. That's why you're paying the extra $10 for all of these securities. Now, when you look at your homeowner's insurance, some things might be covered, such as if there's a theft in your home or an antique breaks because the individual bumped into it or dropped it. Some of those things will be covered under your homeowner's insurance, but typically workman's comp is not going to be covered. So you're going to have to take out a rider. And again, these are all options. You most certainly can do this if the individual that you're hiring, you truly have a great relationship with and you trust them. By all means, look into this. We always talk about options in-home care because you have to make the best decision for you and your loved one. And there are options. We just want to make sure that you're educated on those options when you make your decision. So let's talk about caregiver dependability. When you go with an agency and one of your employees, our employees, are going to your home, we actually have a mobile app that the individual will need to check in so we can ensure that they've arrived at your home at the right time. If they have not, it sends us back an alert. And we're able to contact that individual to see where they are. Did they get caught in traffic? Was there an accident? And we're able to relay that information onto our client. If you have a caregiver through a registry or private, unless they contact you, you're not going to know why they're late or if they're even coming. So let's say you hire a caregiver and Mary doesn't show up for the shift that you hired. A registry is not going to replace Mary. Or if you've hired privately, you would then have to call somebody else to come in. And that could be very time consuming and it's not very reliable. With an agency, we're responsible for helping replace that aide if they can't make a shift, or inform you if they're going to be late due to an unforeseen event. So we also have on the flip side of that, when they're clocking out of your home, so we know when they're arriving and when they're departing. And that's very important to know, especially when you're bringing people into your home, who's coming into your home and how long they're going to be, and that there's supervision. So we're going to go take it to the next level of screening and background checks. If you're doing a registry, some registries may do a background check. That is a question that you certainly want to ask a registry. Will you be performing a background check? And what type of background check will you be doing? It's important not to have just a state background check done, because anybody could move to the state of Florida and take up a position to be a caregiver and may have a criminal background in another state. So our agency does a level 2, which is basically an FBI check, and that is national. We also do a drug screening upon us hiring them. And if we have any indication that another drug screen needs to be taken place further down the road, we will also do that. So an agency is always looking to protect the client. When you're working privately, you need to do the background check, and you may have to ask for a drug screening as well. If you do choose to go private or work with a registry, please remember to ask those questions, do your homework, check your liability and your insurance, and check into getting a background check. You cannot be too safe when allowing people into your home. What we could also do too is we're going to be sharing the screen with you, but we sent that document to Bruce, who will share that with you. And what we'll also do for you guys is we'll put together a list of questions to ask when interviewing an agency or a registry. And it'll at least help you pinpoint what questions to ask, because as we're going through it and we're going through the process, we sometimes have a tendency to forget something and then later think of it after we've hired the individual. So we'll be more than happy to send that to you too, Bruce, so that you could share it with the group. Okay? So last is RN oversight and supervision. So the development and oversight of a clinically sound plan of care is important for the physical and emotional well-being of a loved one. The active involvement of a registered nurse in verifying the competency and the daily routine of the caregiver that's providing care to you will provide peace of mind to the families, knowing that a licensed professional is overseeing the care, and our nurses are available 24/7. So when an agency who has nurse supervision is selected, that nurse would come in and do the head-to-toe assessment. We would establish a plan of care that the client would agree with. When we come to that, we share it with our caregiver. So our caregiver is well communicated with so that they understand truly what your needs are and what needs to be provided. This includes your likes, your dislikes, also any of your medical conditions and medications, where we can either manage your medication or we could pre-pour your medication or do medication reminders, because we are a skilled agency as well. You have a lot of agencies out there that only provide private duty. So they may have a nurse on site, but by state law, they cannot handle any of your medications. So again, a good question to ask when interviewing agencies: do you have RN supervision? Can you handle medication? In the end, in-home care can be an incredibly comforting service. However, if you don't ask the right questions, you don't hire a reputable agency, or you don't do your homework to protect yourself, it could truly be detrimental. And this is not the time that we need to worry about having to protect ourselves when our thoughts right now are on the well-being and the care of ourselves or our loved ones. And each agency offers several different services. So ask about the differentiators. Why are you different? Why should I hire you? What makes you better than the rest of the agencies out there? So we want to keep you safe. We want to be able to provide you care in your home that keeps you comfortable in the surroundings where you are comfortable and keep you safe and healthy. So a lot of information we gave you quickly, but if you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
So Tracy, I have a few questions that will probably be very relevant to the entire group. So I'll just start off. So can you talk about transitional care, possibly somebody, in a rehab facility that's moving to assisted living that might need some extra support?
Yes, absolutely. So as I had mentioned, each agency has a plethora of services. Transitional care is wonderful if somebody is either leaving from rehab or possibly coming from home and going into an assisted living, and they need a little bit more hands-on, one-on-one care. Truly, when you're going into an assisted living, they have scheduled care for individuals moving in, which means your shower or bathing, if you need assistance, will be scheduled, and any other care that you may require will be scheduled. But let's say you want to take your shower in the middle of the afternoon because it was hot and you just need an additional shower. You're not going to get that because you had your scheduled care. But with on-demand care, as we're transitioning you into a community to get you assimilated, you could ask for any of the services during that day. So it's very individualized and very personalized. But the transitional care really helps individuals get into the assisted living, understand what those services are, get them assimilated and comfortable, maybe introduce them to some individuals there, participate in some of the activities that they're offering, just help the person flow a little bit easier into the community.
Thank you. So I know many home health care companies have a minimum of hours. So how does Brightstar handle that?
So you're absolutely right, Bruce. All agencies have different time limits. A lot of them do have a 4-hour minimum. Brightstar Care does not have a minimum. So if you needed us for 2 hours in the morning to prepare you for the day, we certainly could fulfill those needs.
Okay. How are you all handling COVID testing?
So our staff was being tested weekly, and what we wanted to do was be able to offer it when needed. So let's say somebody called us and they needed a caregiver to go into their home and they needed to know that they were COVID negative. Susan has just recently purchased our own machine and our own test kits. So if we should need somebody as soon as possible, we can test them in-house, get the results, and ensure that we're sending somebody COVID-free to your home. In addition to that, we have PPE guidelines. So all of our aides are equipped with masks, face shields, gloves, gowns when needed. Whatever the situation is, we provide all of that to our aides to ensure their safety for the client as well as for themselves.
Excellent. When we met the other day, I was impressed by your, all the different services, and one of those, which I hope you could talk a little bit more about, is someone going with somebody on medical appointments.
Absolutely. So I'll give a little bit of my personal history of how I came to Naples, Florida. Is that I have a 99-year-old grandmother, and my mom is 77 years old. And my mom was getting caregiver burnout. She's exhausted from caring 24/7. And my grandmother can't go to the doctors by herself because sometimes she forgets to ask those questions, or maybe she misinterpreted what the doctor was telling her. So I moved down here to be with my family to help out. But what our company does is that we're able to send a nurse with an individual to a doctor's appointment so that they can hear what's being said, so that they can help remind the individual of maybe what they need to ask. And they're also able to collect all of the information and share it with a loved one, maybe a child who lives in Minnesota and can't be with their parent for the doctor's appointment. We would provide the transportation, be with them during the appointment, and help communicate the needs of that individual so that they're cared for.
I have an elderly mom, and my wife has her elderly dad, and we ask them after they go to appointments, how did it go, and did you talk to the doctor? And it's very hard as a son or as a daughter to hear, because I'm sure things get misinterpreted along the whole way. So I think that's a very valuable service that you all offer. And I'm
Well,
just,
and also,
I'm just gonna keep on going down my list. So just,
okay.
um, so is there a way that people can sort of pre-screen? So you all have a sort of a file on people even before they need your services?
Well, actually, I'm going to let Susan, our Director of Operations, answer that question. So are you asking about pre-screening the staff?
No, the individual. So let's just say there's somebody on this call today and they said, well, I want to, I may want to use Brightstar in the future, but I don't need them right now, but I want to use Brightstar in the future. Is there a way that you can sort of have a file on me so you know who I am, my dog's name, where I live, maybe some of my current medical situation. So then when I do
Yeah.
need you, then you already have that file in place.
Yes, definitely. We have a wonderful case manager. Her name is Carrie, and she goes out and would meet with you in the home and talk with you just about all of those things, what you want to have in place should something happen, just to be prepared for if needed. And then we would have all of your information in our system, and you would just be essentially a phone call away. I have a seasonal patient. She lives in Illinois, and every year she comes down and she does just that. She'll call me and say, Susan, we're in town. Do you need anything from me? I don't need you, but just in case. And sure enough, last year, unfortunately, her husband had fallen, broken his hip, and she happened to be back in Illinois visiting family. So she called us, and we were there within 30 minutes with him. I had a nurse with him, and we stayed with him and provided all the care she wanted until he was better and could be independent again. So that's just kind of one example where we can definitely meet with you, go over everything, tell you about our services, learn what is important to you, how to fill that time with purpose, and then
we put it into our system.
Yeah.
Yes, we do also have a system that we put everything in, Bruce. So we certainly can compile that and have a file.
yeah, and then we're just a phone call away, whether that's a Tuesday at 10 a.m. or a Saturday at 10 p.m. We're available 24/7, and it's always someone in the office. So it would be someone someone that knows you and could take care of things right away.
Good stuff. Are any of your services covered by Medicare?
We do not, we cannot bill Medicare, but I do work with every long-term care insurance that is out there, as well as I can't bill directly to a private insurance like a Blue Cross or a United, but I would be happy to work with you to see how we could make that work. Typically, private insurances do like a third-party payer. So I would bill the third-party payer, they would bill your insurance. And I've worked with people to have that cover a portion of their care, but typically it's pretty minimal or just short-term.
And obviously veterans benefits as well.
Veterans
Yeah.
benefits, long-term health insurance, yes.
So my last question, Tracy, you briefly touched on skilled home care. So can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on what the difference is between just regular home care and skilled home care?
Certainly. So there are two different home cares. One of them is private duty home care. That's non-medical private duty home care. So they are an agency and they do all of that same supervision, background checks, insured and bonded, and the caregivers are employees of that agency. With non-medical, they cannot help you with any medical needs. They can help you with activities of daily living, such as bathing, grooming. They can help you with that. However, if you should have a wound, they can't help you with that. They can't change a Band-Aid. They cannot put any clinical hands on you. So having the skills piece along with our private duty allows us to send out our nurses and utilize their services for potential wound care problem, for infusions, the IV therapies that you might need. So med reminders with med management, handling your medication, maybe pre-pouring your medication. This is all what skills can bring to the table. So it gives you a higher standard of service and services. So the nurses are obviously experienced with all of this. If it's potentially a wound care situation, they're going to be working with your doctor to get the orders, pick up the needed items, and be able to ensure that that wound is taken care of.
Great. So I have one more question, then I'll let everybody else. So do you all do any special training with your staff for people who have some cognitive impairments?
We do. So when I first joined Brightstar, I sat through their caregiving training just so I can answer a question like this. It's a very intensive training. And then we have additional training after that, which includes dementia training. And we also are certified with the Struthers Parkinson's training. So we do have a myriad of training opportunities for our aides, because a lot of times an agency may just take the word of somebody who says, I have dementia experience because I grew up and my grandmother had dementia. That's not what we constitute as experience. Yes, you've experienced it, but there's so many different dementias and each individual suffers differently with that disease. So we say if you see one dementia, you've only seen one dementia. So the toolkit that we could provide our aides may work one day, but may not work another day, or it may work this hour, but it's not going to work the next hour with the same person. So what we want to do is we want to inform them of all the different ways to work with anyone suffering with dementia, so they are truly prepared to handle any type of behavioral situations or sundowning, anything that our clients are going to experience. So yes, we have, and then we also have a skill set. So after they go through all of the training, they actually have to perform certain skills for our nurses and be evaluated by our nurses before they are considered an employee.
Great. And how can people reach you all? I know I'll be sending everyone a link, but how can they reach you, Tracy?
So they can certainly call us at 239-992-4779. And that's going to be on the page that we send you, Bruce. And they can also, if they'd like to go online, we're at www.brightstarcare.com. And then it's a / with Fort Myers-Naples. Yeah.
I'll send that to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing, Bruce, that we just offer out to the individuals today is we truly believe in our senior community, and we want to ensure that our seniors receive the best care, and they receive the best care from vetted professionals who have experience. So if anybody should have a question as we're going through the aging process and they may not know where to turn, please feel free to call us. Either Susan and I would be more than happy to take the call. If you're looking for an elder law attorney, if you're looking for a specialty doctor, if you're looking for transportation, if there's something that you need, we would like you to be able to call us so we could help you solve those problems, and we can refer you to the experts in the area.
Tracy, I know it's a little personal, but I know you moved down here from Sandy Hook and all that. So can you just share that with everyone?
So I'm from Newtown, Connecticut, and I was working for an in-home care agency up in Newtown. And a few years ago, as most individuals probably know, we suffered a horrific tragedy at Sandy Hook, where we lost the lives of 20 children and teachers as well. With that experience, it really grounded me at that moment that life is so fragile and we only have but today. We don't know what's coming next. And it redesigned my life.
I started thinking about family first a little bit more, not of profession and working 20 hours a day and missing out on what life has to bring. With that being said, I had to refocus, and our seniors in that community suffered a great deal as our senior center was right behind the school in which it happened. So our seniors had suffered quite a bit, and a lot of care that came into Newtown was really designated for families and children, and as well as seniors. But we felt our senior population was not as embraced. So what we did was I joined with another senior in the community, and we started a not-for-profit. It's called Friends of Newtown Seniors, and we put this together so that we could assist our seniors, not only with the tragedy and what they went through, but what it brought afterwards. And then it just grew even further. Then it was really just talking about how we handle isolation, depression, trips to doctors, gatherings. We want to go out, but maybe our spouse is no longer alive and we don't want to feel like we need to be a couple. So it really grew, and then AARP jumped in and they joined us to make it a livable community. So Sandy Hook has changed my life a great deal, but what it has done is it has registered with me that life is fragile. We need to live for the moment, and we need to care for each other. So I think I'm in the best spot here with Brightstar because they feel the same way. They have the same passion, and we want to be able to share that with our seniors.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Very, very nice. Anybody have any questions for them, for Tracy or Susan? Joe, Ann, you got to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, Joe.
Yes, hello, everybody. Could you comment on live-in care? I'm sorry, could you comment on live-in care? I have a neighbor who has dementia and has 24/7, has around-the-clock care. So I don't know anything about this. So I wonder if you could comment on it, please.
So we do around-the-clock care, but we do it in 2 12-hour shifts. We don't do the live-in style where you have someone essentially living with you for a couple reasons. I think the most wraps around safety, which is with a true live-in, the person is given breaks and uninterrupted sleeping time. And just for safety measures, I don't think it's appropriate for someone to be sleeping. So we would do 2 12-hour shifts, and we would staff that with consistent caregivers. So if Monday, Wednesday, Friday day shift was Betty, that would be Betty every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And all of our 24/7 cases, the caregivers, their schedules are set, they're there, and we're helping with everything. So if it's meal preparations, if you Zoom call with your family, the caregivers will help set that up. We're doing everything with your life, but the caregivers are awake 24/7, not sleeping.
Yeah, I think that's the case with my neighbor too. It's 12 hours approximately.
Perfect. Yes, sleeping is not good.
Thank you very much.
There are times where people hire somebody, as a live-in 24/7, and I think you're just asking for trouble with that. And I don't know where this person exists, that doesn't have a life outside of work, and that they can just move in with somebody 24/7 for the rest of their life. So I think it's much better, and I'm sure that there's some legal ramifications of, time off and all that. So I think it's much better to go on the shift basis.
Thank you.
The big thing to think about when people look at live-in, and I learned this, I've been here for 8 years, and my first year here, we did live-ins prior to the overtime law going into effect and that changing some things. And what I found out, legally speaking, was that if a caregiver is living there and decides to have their mail sent there, then you have to evict them. Once you receive mail, the county considers that your home. So it's not just, okay, this isn't working, please leave. If they choose, they can say, no, I have nowhere to go, you'll need to evict me. And I've heard and seen that happen. So live-ins are just, in my mind, they bring a set of circumstances with them that are just truly not worth it. But I value safety more than anything. And night times are difficult if you get up to go to the restroom. You know, bathrooms and kitchens are the number 1 and 2 places where falls happen with seniors. You know, I would prefer that someone is with you and you're safe, that they're not resting.
Good. Ann?
I was wondering if you get many referrals from social workers and physicians' offices, in which case, you know, you would get a lot of medical background information. Is that for the nurse who is doing the initial workup? That would be very helpful. I'm a retired nurse, and I worked in a hospital in Boston and sent out referrals to the Visiting Nurse Association, and they really relied on that. No, you know, the background of what happened to the patient in the hospital.
Anytime that we get a patient that comes from the hospital or a rehab, skilled nursing, or even a referral from the doctor, we do get their medical history. That is so important to the nurse when they are setting up the care plan, no matter what the level of care you're having. So we do try to get as much information. And even if you come to us from, you know, you found us on Google or some other avenue, we still do, when Carrie comes out and does the home visit and meets with you, we do have a medical release form. And if you give permission and sign that, then we do obtain records that can help us fully understand the big picture. So as much information as the patient is willing to give, we want to receive.
That's a great relief. That's excellent. Thank you.
You're
welcome.
Debbie, you have to unmute yourself.
You're muted, Debbie.
Got to unmute Debbie.
Down at the bottom of your page on the left.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you discuss charges? Because I came in just a little late.
We did not go over pricing. Typically what we would do is come out to the home. We talked a little bit about, we have this fabulous LPN, Carrie Rodriguez, who would come out to your home and discuss what your client-centered care of plan would look like. And then she would be able to discuss with you pricing. So, you know, do you need just a few hours? Are you going to need longer than that? Are you going to be looking for 2 hours versus 4 hours? So we talked a little bit about each agency having a minimum amount of hours, and most agencies will require 4 hours at a minimum to go out to your home. We don't have that. So depending on what your level of care is going to depend on where you fall in how many hours, and then that's how she'll be able to give you your pricing.
So is it an
I will
hourly
tell you,
price?
it can be, yes, yes. So what I'll tell you is we are not the most expensive, we're not the least expensive, but what we're charging is for the higher level of care that we can provide. And with that being said, if you don't mind, I just want Susan to discuss with you guys just quickly, us being, Brightstar being Joint Commission accredited and what that means.
Yeah, so we got our accreditation back in 2009, and what that does is it just raises the standard of everything that we do. Everything is really focused around safety and education. So from our hiring process to our onboarding, to our continued education and credentials, to the things that we track with patient safety, we have a number of measures that we are tracking every day, and the Joint Commission just raises the standard of safety. So with everything we're doing, I have 2 director of nurses. I have Michael, who is overseeing our skilled services, and Ellen, who oversees personal care. And then the 2 of them with myself are looking and meeting every day and then weekly on all of our patient safety measures to make sure that not only are we delivering a higher standard of care, but that we're giving you the safest environment possible.
And not to dodge your question, Debbie, but to give you an idea, if you are doing 4 hours of more of care, it's $27 an hour. If it's less than the 4 hours, there's a little bit of an increase because it's a little bit more difficult to fulfill those cases because, of course, the aides want to work more hours. So I want to be able to answer you honestly with that
Right.
because I know that. Go ahead.
I'm just finishing 12 hours of home health aide care after an automobile accident. And I wanted to have the same, I have had somebody here 5 hours a day for 12 weeks. I wanted to have the same person all the time if possible, and if not, to just have a second person that was, and as it turned out, I have a second person that did Sundays and also substituted if the other person couldn't come, and they worked together arranging that. And so I had concerns about using an agency because I thought I wouldn't be able to have the same person all the time. And the other concern I had was about reimbursement. Like you said, I couldn't have any charges go either to the auto insurance company or to Medicare. And so I found a description of a home health aide, and I have the aides keep their hours by the week and the days and turn it in once a week, and I pay them. And I photocopy the check and include the description of a home health aide. And I wanted to know if you have any experience with submitting that with your taxes.
Okay, so I'll answer your first question, which was, I think, about scheduling and consistency.
Right.
So the way we schedule here is if you're requesting a consistent schedule, if you're saying I want every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to noon, we staff that with the same person. So every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday would be the same caregiver. If you had daily care 7 days a week, we would probably have 2 caregivers, depending on the length of shift. If you had 12-hour shifts and overtime comes into effect, we would probably have 3. But
yeah, I did 5 hours a day, the same 5 hours from 1 to 6.
Yeah. So we would staff that consistently. And as long as the caregiver is happy and the client is happy, that schedule does not change. If for any reason you felt that caregiver wasn't the right match, we would replace them, no questions asked. Your second question being reimbursement. So I have worked with people trying to get it reimbursed by their private insurance. And I've worked with people getting it from their auto insurance. We work a lot with workers' compensation. I've done a lot of various work. It sounds like from what you're saying is that you hired a private caregiver.
I did.
And when you want to seek reimbursement through these entities, they require your tax ID, which as a private citizen you would not have. So I don't know how you would get the reimbursement. They don't
use your Social Security?
No, because you have to, you basically have entered, yes, but you have to use your business. So registries, agencies, we all have professional tax IDs,
Right.
and we have to send that in, as well as you have to send care notes. So the caregiver logged that they did assistance with bathing, dressing, toileting, meal prep, etc.
Right.
And then we have to send in our insurance. So if the caregiver had insurance, that would all have to be provided. And most insurances also require an initial assessment by a registered nurse, validating that the care was needed. So having an agency, even if you had to pay out of pocket, I could assist you in seeking reimbursement from your insurance as well. They require ICD-10 codes and CPT codes and
It's convoluted.
a lot of stuff that's
Yes.
very complicated. But I've
Right.
worked with a lot of
That's what-
people who haven't.
That's what I was wondering, if you do provide, the hours they work and a description every time. Do you just do that once, or do you have to submit it, regularly for the reimbursement?
You would have to send every invoice and every care note. And all of our invoices include the date, the time, the caregiver's name, the service provided, the hourly rate, the number of hours, and the total. And then that comes with a completed task list, is what we refer to it as. And that's been signed off by the caregiver and by you. And then I've worked with, United Health, for example, and I have inquired what they require. And I've had people get reimbursement, and I've gone through third-party payers to get reimbursement. But with a private caregiver, I'm not quite sure how that would work for you, because there's some key components missing.
Yeah, and many insurance companies are trying to be, I guess, they're very wary of fraud. And so even though you're honest, there could be somebody else who's like giving money to their daughter and then saying, my daughter's a caregiver. So that's why they're asking for that type of documentation. So any other questions here? We've covered a lot. I want to thank everyone for being part of this. Tracy and Susan, you've been great, and enjoy your cranberry sauce and your turkey today. I see cranberry sauce. So I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. To me, Thanksgiving is a great holiday. On the call earlier, to me, Thanksgiving is my Super Bowl. I get recipes the whole year, and I prepare for this whole Thanksgiving. And so it's going to be a little smaller this year, but that's okay. Still going to have good food. And so I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and safe, and eat some great food and some turkey and some gravy and some stuffing. So
Yes.
our next webinar will be December 3rd. And so I'll send out an invite on that. And, again, if you have anybody that has any senior housing questions or has any questions about, any type of senior related types of issues, please reach out to me. I've been doing this for 30 years. This is my business. This is what I've done. So please reach out to me. And again, Tracy and Susan and Brightstar, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.